Hey, this is the C&D channel. I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing an MMA discussion right now on the UFC 151 cancellation. I'm going to go on talk about different topics like who's at fault here. And I really want to get into a larger issue that arose from this, that of oversaturation. Talk about some of the Jon Jones hatred, and some of the things that Jon Jones, his management, and whatnot could have done. Also look at like Zuffa's role in this, which is pretty big. My overall thought is, the story is that UFC 151 was canceled because Dan Henderson had to pull out of the fight due to a knee injury. Chael Sonnen stepped in to take the fight, and Jon Jones refused. And then UFC 151 was canceled. Good amount of fights were moved to like UFC 152, UFC on FX, 5. Machida Jones is going to happen at the main event of 152, which actually bolsters that card, especially since they lost BJ Penn versus Rory McDonald. Personally, I thought that Jones should take the fight. Chael Sonnen is only going to have 2 weeks notice to, 2 weeks, 1 week notice for this fight. He's a guy that fought primarily at middleweight for a long time. He's probably not going to be in the best condition. Jon Jones, good, he has a he had a full training camp here. I don't really see. I think Jon Jones would just have so many advantages. So in that sense, I'm disappointed in Jon Jones. I don't hate him. It's his decision, and it's a business decision to do this. Once again, I don't agree with it. But I'm not him. I hate to hedge, but I'm not. I don't know what his mentality is and whatnot. Well, here's his mentality here. To quote Jon Jones, I definitely apologize to the other fighters on the card. I feel terrible, but it also wasn't my decision to cancel the whole card. I don't make those decisions. I take a lot of pride in the way I perform, and I want to put on the best performance possible every time I fight. I don't want to go out there just to win the fight. I want to go out there and dominate. I want to go out there to dominate. I want to make it look effortless. I want it to be a beautiful thing. The fact of the matter is, seeing his skill set, seeing the disadvantages that Chael would have, more likely than not, he probably would have dominated. In my opinion, I think he would have dominated. Obviously, I can't predict how fights would turn out, but knowing his skill set, I don't doubt that Jon Jones would, be able to stuff a double leg takedown from Chael Sonnen, And once again, 5-round fight. Cardio is another issue. I can't imagine Chael's cardio being that great. He's also going to be undersized. So there's a chance that Jones could dominate. And I do feel it's a missed opportunity for Jones. He really could have done this favor for the UFC. And now that he didn't do this favor to UFC, Dana White is just so angry at him. And actually, after his quote, it will be the crux of of one bigger argument here. Dana White said, being a fight promoter and being in the business that we're in, you can't make somebody fight. I can't make you fight. You're either a fighter or you're not. This is what we all do for a living. I have a building here in Las Vegas that 250 people have been busting their ass, working hard to promote this fight. Not just for Jon Jones, but for everyone on this card. You know what? Good for you, Jon Jones. You're rich and you've got some money, and you don't need to take this fight. But there's a bunch of guys on the end card that this is how they feed their family, and this is how they make a living. And the UFC has spent expletive of money to promote this fight. Okay, here's a problem here. Dana White is blaming Jon Jones for canceling his card, but where is the blame towards the UFC and Zuffa? I'm trying to figure this out. Here's one thing, and I think this 151 cancellation actually shows a bigger problem with the Zuffa model as it stands. And that really is, and it's been a big problem for a while now. It's oversaturation. Okay. I'm going to use an example of UFC 146. Okay. Junior Dos Santos was fight Austin Overeem. The co-main event was Cain Velasquez versus Frank Mir. When Overeem tested positive and failed his drug test, or something like that, they managed to get Frank Mir to step up, and we had a good event. I think it drew really well, got good pay-per-view numbers. It was good. They were able to find that replacement. Where's the replacement? I mean to say, like, if Dan Henderson got hurt, really, where's, this is your plan B to get Chael Sonnen? It goes to show, it's like, you couldn't even put another fight in here. You had to hopefully find a replacement for one of these guys that gets injured. This was a one-fight card. It's Jon Jones versus Dan Henderson and pretty much everything else. There are cases when, like, a co-main event can replace step in and become the main event. But the co-main event was like Jay Haran Ellenberger, and then Yagin versus Seaver was in this card. Thiago Tavares versus Dennis Hallman. It really goes to show, it's like, wow, there was no replacement fight here? at all, and that's, I think, what this shows isn't that, like, oh, Jon Jones is this, he's so, I hate him now, it's all his fault. I'm going to be honest, I find that Jon Jones could have saved this card, but he's not saving it from something he did. It's not his fault. I really don't feel it's his fault that the card is canceled. I feel that he had the opportunity to save it, but from pretty much Zuffa pretty much not having plan B. Quite honestly, that's how I feel. I'm not some UFC hater. I hope most of the people that watch that see my shows know that. I'm not some sort of Zuffa hater, but, like, it really does draw this bigger problem of oversaturation. There's just, you have so many cards, and you have cards like this that are just so top heavy that if something happens, this is like, what, the first time a card was canceled. I think there was a UFC that was canceled, but it was before it was, like, totally made. This is the first card that was totally made but had to get canceled. Yeah, it sucks that the undercard fighters, they're not going to get their paychecks. They're not going to get their sponsor money. And once again, Jon Jones could have saved that, I think. But once again, I don't think he's I don't think he's, like, the big cause for it. I personally feel that it is the oversaturation problem. And a lot of journalists and whatnot in MMA have been really pointing to this oversaturation problem for a while. We've been having some relatively weak cards. There's, 148 was good because it had the Anderson versus Sonnen fight, but, like, 147, 149, so very weak cards. 150 was alright. It was good. It was good. It was solid. But, once again, we're not getting those, like, really strong cards where, like, everyone can be, you have, like, 3 fights, and any one of those 3 fights could be the main event. You're not getting those anymore. You're getting guys like Chris Weidman. You're getting fights like Weidman versus Munoz that no one saw because it was on Fuel. Because you have so many cards and you need a strong main event on the channel that no one has. You know, same with the Korean Zombie versus Dustin Poirier. You know, it's like it's like it almost feels wasted in a way. So yeah, you know, it sucks that this. You know, I would have liked to see the fight. Like I said, you know, I'm not putting so much blame onto Jones here. It's just one of those things. It's hard to explain, like, and I can see where a lot of people are, you know, blaming him for ruining this card, but you know, you just look at it and it's like, man, this is even on paper, this wasn't that strong of a card, except for Jones versus Henderson, and I hope, you know, this cancellation, I hope just moving forward that, like, you know, it exposes the problems with what's going on, especially with oversaturation in the UFC these days. More so than, you know, like, you know, those who hated Jones are going to hate him more, and obviously there are some fans that are not fans of his anymore. And you know, that's their prerogative. Like I said, he could have saved the card. He probably should have taken the fight, to be perfectly honest with you. But seriously, you know, so many, you know, you've seen, there's cards where, like, the main event got scrapped. They're able to replace it somehow. You know, by either bumping up the co-main, putting up some new fight. Yeah, injury. Yeah, you know, and injuries are there, you know, which, you know, make it hard for the UFC right now. And someone gets injured, and sometimes you'll see a main event. You know, someone got injured, and there was, you know, someone did manage to step in, and that new fight happened. With this card, though, it's like, it just couldn't happen that way, you know? It's just, if Jones got injured, you know, really, the card's done, you know? Dan Henderson's injured, the card's done, you know? It's like they had to find this late replacement. Speaking of replacement, too, you know, it's like, it's Chael Sonnen, he can definitely sell fights, but he's not deserving of a shot. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, he's coming off a loss to Anderson Silva. He hasn't fought in 205 in years now. And I get it, you know, it's entertainment. It's his ability to sell a fight that really gave him the opportunity. But, you know, quite honestly, he's not, as far as, like, looking at the sporting aspect of it, you know, he doesn't deserve to fight Jon Jones. I mean, this was a guy that was going to fight Forrest Griffin, and even then, you know, Dana White said, like, oh, even if Chael Sonnen beats Forrest Griffin, he's not going to get a title shot, you know, and all of a sudden, you know, yeah, it's cool that he stepped up, but he didn't deserve this title shot, you know. And once again, that I think that actually goes more to the oversaturation thing. You know, it's just like, you have to get this guy coming off a loss, maybe not even a guy coming off some wins. You know, you have to get middleweights, essentially. I think Chris Weidman, or Chris Weidman offered to take the spot as well. It's like, wow, you're getting these middleweights to fight the champion, Jon Jones. You know? So, it sucks it didn't happen, but like I said, I hope it really puts into perspective, not that Jon Jones is some bad person or that we should hate Jon Jones, but, it should put in perspective of what's going on in the UFC and Zuffa right now, as far as just too many cards. You have a lot of fighters who, honestly, a good amount of them aren't the highest level guys, and you're not building too many stars in the UFC. I mean, Jon Jones pretty much is kind of like carrying the UFC. He was carrying this card. He's their star for the next couple of years. But besides Jones, it's like, who else had they built? I mean, that's the thing. There was just, like I said, it goes to oversaturation again. It's just like there's no one else with a name that could headline this card that can replace it. I mean, you're having this fight with Jon Jones versus Dan Henderson and a bunch of just other cards that honestly could be on a Fuel or FX broadcast. I know Josh Koscheck pulled out, but I mean, no one would see Josh Koscheck, Jake Allenberger. That's probably a good Fuel main event. But otherwise, it goes to show how just weak this card was on paper, and how much the UFC and Zuffa is just gambling at this point. It's like we'll have one card and just a bunch of okay fights, on there. Just decent bouts, but not anything that's has huge divisional relevance. Some of them have some divisional relevance. There's not a lot of marquee names other than Jon Jones and Dan Henderson on this card. So, yeah, I guess I just want to restate my points here. I'm personally disappointed that Jon Jones didn't take this fight. I think he should have. I really do. I think he'd beat Jon Jones. Or I think he'd beat Chael Sonnen. I think he has a lot of advantages over Sonnen, especially with how the situation is right now. I think Dana White is pointing a lot of blame at Jon Jones. And, obviously he's the promoter. He works for the UFC. He's not going to point the finger at the UFC. But, if you really look into the issue, the bigger issue isn't Jon Jones pulling out. It's that there was no plan B. The cards are just way too oversaturated. Or the cards. There's just too many cards out there causing oversaturation, making it so that, Jon Jones versus Dan Henderson is carrying the card, and there's nothing else of huge value on the card, just a bunch of other fights. And this oversaturation is causing it so that, if this fight does, not fall through, someone else can take over. But once again, it can't happen because, like I said, oversaturation, I guess. I keep reiterating the same points, but I do want to put that point out there. I understand the hatred for Jones. Like I said, he could have saved this card. I don't think he necessarily ruined it, though, because he didn't take the fight. I don't think those are two mutually exclusive points. Like I said, I think what ruined it and made it so that's canceled is Zuffa's inability to have a plan B because of oversaturation. It is a big opportunity that was missed by Jon Jones. he definitely could have scored some, goodwill with the fans, goodwill with the UFC, got a paycheck. So, it's definitely not good on Jones. He lost fans. The people that don't like him even more. I know one guy even wanted to campaign to boycott his fights. Once again, that's not the answer. Don't oversaturate the cards. If you had Jon Jones versus Henderson and some really cool co-main event, and maybe even a third feature fight, hey, guess what? If Jon Jones versus Hendo doesn't happen, you can bump up, something else, or like the co-main event. Can't do that here, So, yeah, that's pretty much it for my MMA discussion about the UFC 151 cancellation. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And that's it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.